Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen and viewers. We are here with Judge Dennis Baily. He is running for re-election in the 17th Judicial Circuit Court in Broward County. Hello, Judge Baily, and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come by and talk to the Adams Brothers podcast.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So why don't we just go right ahead and just ask you to introduce yourself and tell us about your education and what led up to you wanting to be a judge here in Broward County.
I appreciate it. My name is Dennis Baily. I'm a native son of Broward County, born at Broward General Hospital. I grew up in the North End up in Pompano Beach, went through Pompano Beach High School, and went off to college. After college, I worked for 4 years in the restaurant industry and decided 4 years was enough. I don't want the restaurant industry. So I went to law school and graduated from Nova Law School in 1985 with my law degree. I joined the state attorney's office and worked there as an assistant state attorney. I later left and went into private practice, did criminal defense work. So for the first 14 years of my legal practice, I was doing criminal law, both prosecution and defense. Handled cases, everything from misdemeanors to murder, including death penalty cases. Only as a defense attorney, I represented 6 people facing the death penalty. And after 14 years of criminal, I decided to switch. I got married and children were on the way and decided to get into the civil practice for a more lucrative practice. And I did 14 years in civil, trying cases in state and federal courts from Key West to Jacksonville to Pensacola. My clients range from Fortune 500 companies to representing the homeless down in Miami, the folks who are living under bridges fighting for their rights. After about 28 years in practice, I had several people approach me, and there was an open seat in Broward County, and they encouraged me to run, so I did. I was elected in 2014, and I am now finishing my first term as a circuit judge in Broward. Since elected, I've served as a presiding judge in the family courts, in the civil courts, and in the criminal courts. In the criminal courts, I handled a number of death penalty cases. In the family courts, I'm dealing with where I am now. I'm dealing with such issues as families in crisis, where the kids should go, how this family should deal with the crisis it created for itself. One of the things about the family court is during this coronavirus shutdown, we didn't miss a beat. We kept going. We've handled all of our trials on Zoom. Full evidentiary hearings, including financial experts and multi-day trials. So it's been a blessing that we've been able to do that. Unlike civil and unlike criminal, we're all bench trials, meaning there's no juries involved, so we did not have to slow down in our case handling process. So it's been a busy season for all of us. And the work is just phenomenally rewarding for me. I'm glad I'm doing it.
Okay, so you grew up here in Broward County, pretty much.
Yeah. Yes, 100%, yeah.
Okay, so you're a homegrown judge. You're right here from Broward County. Okay, so that's what we need. I think we need more of that here in Broward County. People that really actually grew up in the streets here and just, we can see what Broward County used to be and where it is now, and all of the changes that you could bring forth. I mean, it's good to have a person here in from Broward County here. You don't see too much of that.
No, and it helps because, like, for instance, the troubles we've seen on the streets this year reminded me of when I went into Pompano Beach High School as a freshman. They had just closed Ely High School and force bused the students to various high schools, including Pompano. So we had students coming in who were wronged by the powers that be, whoever made that decision. They were captains of their football teams or captains of the cheerleading squad or class, officers, and forced to leave their school and come to Pompano Beach High School. They were angry. And so the first year there at Pompano, there were a lot of fights, a lot of racial tension on campus, and a lot of very upset people. So that seeing what's going on in the streets in 2020 kind of reminded me of what I saw back in 1970. So it's hard to believe that's 50 years ago. I guess I'm aging myself, but we fought for it. In fact, Kenny Davis is a developer up in Pompano Beach. He and I were classmates. I was captain of the football team. He was captain of the basketball team. And we decided by our junior year, we're fed up with this. No more fights. We got to stop the fights. So we ran for president, vice president on the ticket of no more fights. And we won. And our senior year, we had no fights on campus. It was a great year. So it's something that we were happy that we put forth and accomplished.
Okay.
Kenny Davis, you're speaking of him. Actually, he was the contractor, I believe, about 30-something, over 38 years ago. He built my parents' house. I remember him.
Yeah, he's still building houses. He's still working.
Yeah.
His son, in fact, he had twin son and daughter, and his both of them went to law school. His son ended up assigned to my division in the courthouse. So there I was with my best friend from high school, his son, a lawyer in front of me every day. That'll tell you how old you're getting pretty quick.
Yes.
Okay, Judge Baily, let's go on into your first question. How would you address the issues of Black defendants receiving harsher and longer sentences than white defendants who have committed the same crime?
One of the issues that doesn't get much attention in those statistical analysis is that 97% of the cases, the judge doesn't make the decision. The lawyers have worked out a deal. They've negotiated and worked out a deal, and they present it to the judge. So if we had more than 3 to 4% of cases go to trial, we'd have to shut down. 97% of our cases, actually more than that, but I'll say with 97%, there is no trial. The judge doesn't make the decision. The only time a judge makes a decision on sentencing is either the person pleads open to the judge or it's at the end of a trial. 97% of the time, the lawyers work out the deal and the judge says, okay, and he takes the deal. It's rare for a judge to step in and say, wait a minute, I don't like the deal. I don't like what's going on here. You know, it has happened in my courtroom from time to time. If I'll ask somebody, okay, are you pleading guilty to this crime? And you can see in the defendant's face, this isn't right. I'm getting pushed into this. I don't want to do this. And we'll stop. Hold on. If you don't feel this is right, then don't do it.
All right.
So that it's hard to gauge when you get the whole picture of everybody involved, including both the prosecutor and the defense attorney in their negotiations. It makes the question a little more complex. There's no justification for any difference in the sentencing based on the color of somebody's skin. But if you broaden the picture out a little bit and take a look at it, see the forest for the trees, it's a little different.
Well, I asked you that question because I have two friends. One of my friends, they're white. The other one is Black. Both were caught with cocaine by the cops. One just happened to be powdered cocaine, and the other had crack cocaine. But because it was crack cocaine, and the Black person was caught with the crack cocaine, he received a harsher sentence. And they had both pretty much never been arrested or had pretty much, well, I wouldn't say been arrested. They pretty much had the same criminal history, just little petty things, misdemeanors and everything. But the Black friend of mine received a harsher sentence. So that is the reason why I always ask that question, because I personally know people that's been affected by receiving a harsher sentence.
Don't get me wrong, that question has to be asked. If you're comparing apples to apples and there's an identifiable difference in how somebody's being treated by his classification as a minority member, then yeah, that's an injustice that needs to be addressed.
Thank you for answering that question, Wayne.
Yeah, and and a lot of people, I think, a broader conversation when Black people question the judicial system or question law enforcement now, it's like every Black person is labeled anti-police, like we want lawlessness in the community, and that's just not true. We want equal protection that is guaranteed us. We want equal justice under the law, and I see that more and more on TV every night, and I see different politicians, and we had a few on here ourselves that was running for office, and it was like, they didn't come out and directly say it, but I could tell they were upset with Black people out in the streets protesting, racial, injustices. And like I say, they didn't have to say it, but I could tell just by their vibe, and I could tell just how they were very careful with their words. Like, they were kind of almost offended of us even asking that question. And I think that's the question that needs to be asked, because if I'm voting for Judge Dennis Baily, So I'm going to vote for Judge Dennis Baily. I want to know his record. I want to know everything about him before I go cast my vote. My vote is, for me, is sacred because I remember my dad and my mom just telling us stories of them not being able to vote. So I'm 54 years old, so that tells you my parents are much older than me, so they went through, the struggles and I just think those questions need to be answered. But let me get right into my question, Judge. I always ask everyone this. Matter of fact, have you ever been disciplined or reprimanded by the Florida bar?
Sure, not by the Florida bar. Once you become a judge, you're no longer under the Florida bar. It's the Judicial Qualifications Commission, JQC. And in 2000, I think it was 2018, I had a trial where a lawyer was, let's just say, problematic in the courtroom. And I told him to return to the table, and he wouldn't do it. So I told the bailiff to escort him to the table. And the mistake I made was I did that in front of the jury. So what I put at risk is the defendant's ability to get a fair trial if they think that, if the jury thinks the judge doesn't respect the attorney. So I got called out on that. It was written up, and the Supreme Court issued a reprimand for how I handled that situation. And I agreed. I was wrong. And I written before I got reprimanded, I written the attorney a letter of apology. That's not the way I should have handled it. But that's an official reprimand from the Supreme Court, so that falls in your category.
Okay. And have you ever been accused of being biased against the defendants by other attorneys or even defendants? Have you ever been accused of that?
I spent about 5 years in criminal courts, and towards the end, the last division I had, all of the defendants were either facing the death penalty or life in prison. These were people with long records and/or people with dead bodies in their cases. They were just horrible crimes. And there were times when people would spout off and call me every name under the sun and use all kinds of language that's not appropriate for the courtroom. I've never held anybody in contempt. My attitude on it is he's having a very bad day in his life. I mean, look where he is. He's got shackles on and handcuffs and he's facing forever in prison. So I understand when he's upset. So have I ever been called racial epithets? Sure. Absolutely. Have I ever been, I don't know how else to put it. There are times when I've been called a lot of things by upset people if I sentence them and they don't like it.
Okay, and do you believe there's systemic racism within the court system in Broward County?
I don't know what you mean by systemic racism, and here's why I ask, and I hope you can clarify your question. To me, systemic racism is a policy that applies differently between blacks and whites. And the answer to that is no, I'm not aware of any policy. Has there been a history in Broward County? Look, I've been practicing law in Broward County for too many years, over 38 years, I think. So that I've seen a lot of things that were very bad. When I was a prosecutor, I was prosecuting a serial rapist, and the victim I had was the only victim we could get, and so she was very important to us. This was serial rapist is going to walk if we can't get a conviction here. And the defendant was black and the victim was black. And I had I had a judge on the case who was an old Florida cracker and former highway patrolman. And he asked me, is your victim here? I said, yeah, she's right there sitting in the back. And he looked at her and he looked at the defendant. He says, this is a black on black crime? I said, yes, sir. He goes, and that's against the law? And my victim left the courtroom, and I go out to see her in the hallway, and she says, I'm not going back in that courtroom. I'm not going to give that, blankety blank the time of my day. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be humiliated in that courtroom. And I sat there for her for an hour, and she was in tears, very upset, and she would not go back in that courtroom. And that guy ended up walking. And I don't blame her as much as I blame the judge. So have I seen racist things happen in Broward County Court? Sure.
And that's pretty much the question I was pretty much asking you.
And I see it, and that was back in the 80s. I see it now coming into my courtroom as a judge where there are certain cases that are arrests that it's, for instance, driving a bicycle without a headlight on. I've never seen a white guy charged with that. And the reason for the stop is that the officer saw the defendant driving a bicycle without a headlight on, and so he stopped them. I throw those cases out. If I'm looking at it going, this is an insult to my intelligence, I'm not going to go down this road. A partially obscured license plate. It just, some of these things are, yeah, there's a law in the books that says you have to have a headlight. Yeah, there's law in the books that says you can't obscure your tag, but I've never seen a white person charged with it. And now I've been on the bench 6 years. I've been in the courthouse over 30 years. No, this one's not going, we're ending it here. So that when I see it come in my courtroom, at least now as a judge, I have the ability to stop it.
Okay, and that's pretty much the question that I was asking, and pretty much I know what you were saying, like as a policy, something that's a policy. Have you seen any of the laws, or do you think, you don't have to be specific about the law, I don't want to put you in that position, but have you seen a law on the books that, or a policy on the book that you perceive yourself as being maybe racist?
No. The short answer is no. And I'm thinking back, have I, and I honestly, God can't think of anything right now that I thought this right on its face is a problem.
Okay. Daryl?
Judge Baily, what are your views on the need for more diversity on the bench and the manner in which the court treats members of different races, particularly Black people?
When you say the courts treat, you talk about candidates for judicial office or just in general?
Just in general.
The diversity is better now than it's ever been before, and not good enough. That's where we are. We're heading in the right direction. Things have been changing in the last 10 years, certainly. And like Bob Diaz is a friend of mine. When I was a young prosecutor, he was a PD in my division. We tried a lot of cases against each other. He was the first Hispanic judge on the bench in 20 years. And for a long time, he was the only Hispanic judge on the bench. And now there's 15 judges. So that things are moving in a positive direction, but we're not there yet. We got to keep going in the right direction. At least we're heading in the right direction. I don't understand the second question. Maybe I didn't hear you right. I'm sorry.
Well, that pretty much answered it. I mean, we could almost, let me just use me as an example. If I walk into a courtroom,
right,
and I'm just being honest, if I walk in front of a white judge, I'm feeling somewhat intimidated. It's just me. I don't know why, but I just feel a little bit intimidated just being in the courtroom. And a lot of Black people, Black Americans, African Americans, we all feel that way. Just walking in there is very stressful. Walking into a courtroom, especially if you've done something wrong, and you're in a courtroom, and most Black people feel a little bit more comfortable if they see a judge that looks like them in the courtroom. That would help to ease their nerves. So that's why I ask you, what do you think about the need for more diversity on the bench?
No, I agree, we do need it, but we're still going to have the same problem you're talking about, because you don't get to pick your judge. A Black man comes into my courtroom, takes one look at me and says, I want to transfer this case to the Black judge down the hall. That's not granted. You don't get to pick your judge.
I understand that they can't do that, but it's just intimidating being in the courtroom,
And there's other dynamics that he's not aware of. What is my background? You're talking to a guy who's been working on race relations since high school 50 years ago. He doesn't know that. He may think I'm just like that old judge I told you about, the former trooper. He may think that's my mindset.
Right.
There have been times in my life where my significant other was a Black woman. He doesn't know that. Nobody knows that. So you're walking in, and is he generalizing me by the color of my skin? Is he judging me because I don't have the same pigmentation he does? Is he making the same mistake?
Right.
So that it's. I think you hit on a very good point earlier. Is look at the track record. Talk to the people who are in the courtroom. Talk to the bailiffs in the courtroom. Talk to the clerks in the courtroom who see that judge day in, day out, every day, and they'll be able to tell you, is this guy a problem, or is this guy part of the problem or part of the solution?
And I think at the end of the day, everybody just wants equal justice, and treated to be treated fairly. That's all we want. And me, I really don't care if it's a black judge, a white judge, a Hispanic, or Asian. I just treat me fair. If I broke the law, then punish me accordingly, but don't over punish me. Is my problem, And I think a lot of black people that go through the judicial system, they most times receive harsher sentences than the white defendants.
And it's no victim mentality, because I hear that word being thrown out a lot. Like, just because black people complain about something, whether it's economically, socially, or within the judicial system, we're accused of having a victim mentality. Let me tell you, I worked hard. I was always raised to work hard, just like my brother did. And neither one of us have a victim mentality. So, calling out racial injustices again, you should not be subject to, just being made fun of. I think if everyone just listened, Judge, to like what we're saying right now, the conversation we're having right now can go a long way. And I understand what Daryl's saying. When I go into court, I think I have enough confidence in the judicial system so far than what I saw. I don't care. I don't go in there saying, I hope I get a black judge. I've never been in any trouble. Never been to jail, never been in any trouble in my 54 years, and don't plan on it, okay?
Right.
So, and if I did, I'm not going to court saying about, what color of the judge is. I just want equal protection, and I just want to come out of there feeling like, hey, everything was fair. If I broke the law, like my brother said earlier, then hold me accountable. But I don't want you to come in there and look at me and just right up off the bat, just
make an example out of
me. I won't. I come in there supposedly with the presumption of innocence.
The criminal courts, it's an amazing place to work, and that's why I love the criminal courts. But racial issues come up in the most mind-numbing way. You never see it coming, and all of a sudden it hits you like a storm. I had a case when I was a prosecutor where two white guys pull up to an apartment at 4 o'clock in the morning. The passenger runs around the back to buy crack cocaine. So they're there to commit a crime. They're going to buy crack cocaine. And 4 black youths come to the window. They see this guy. They figure it's a nice car. They figure he's got money. And they start using sticks, and they're wailing on this guy to try to rob him. He tries to get out of the parking space, throws it into gear, and hits the accelerator, but he threw it into drive and not reverse. And the car jumped forward and killed his small black child.
Wow.
Okay, and so now we have a dead black child. We have the white guys there to buy crack cocaine. We got the black guys there beating him at the window. Right. How do you sort out these issues? Who's really at fault in this? And how you make a decision is going to have those racial overtones written on it. If you don't prosecute anybody, are you saying that the life of that small child doesn't matter because he's black?
Right.
If you prosecute the black guys at the window, are you saying that the white guys shouldn't get punished because there were black guys there? The white guys were there to buy crack cocaine. If you prosecute the black guys, what do you do about the guys at the window? What do you do about the fact that he was trying to get away from being beaten? So that these cases come up more often than the public is aware of, and they become very sticky situation. I had another case where a black kid was charged with waiting in the bushes with a gun to shoot his teacher after school. He was mad at the teacher. And I had another case in the other side of town where 2 white kids had planted a bomb in their school. And it was set up so that when the teacher turned on the light, the bomb would go off. Nobody got hurt. In both situations, the kids were apprehended. But I sat down with the elected state attorney and said, look, we got a problem here. We got to pay attention to how we treat both ends of the spectrum. If we treat these things differently, we're going to have to answer as to why we treat them differently. So whether we like it or not, these cases are related to each other. And sometimes it takes that kind of analysis.
Right. And I also want to ask you, Judge Baily, if you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective lawyer, how would you handle that situation?
It becomes a bigger problem when it's a private attorney as opposed to a court-appointed attorney. If I've got a public defender or an attorney I appointed to the case, I have more control over it. Somebody I appointed on the case, I can simply take them off. I'm taking off this case and give them somebody else. The public defender, I can call their supervisor in, and I've done that both with prosecutors and defense attorney. Call the supervisor in, go back in the jury room, just the three of us, and sit down and say, look, we have a problem here. I'm concerned about this person's work level. You know, they may not be ready for this level of cases. They may need to get some more seasoning on the lower cases before you start giving them serious felonies. But in the private sector, it's a different ballgame. I have no boss to talk to. I have no right to fire them. There have been times where I see an incompetent representation coming at me. I'll go sidebar and talk to the attorneys. I don't mean to insult you, but I don't understand what you're doing at this point. Can you help me understand? And rightfully, sometimes the lawyer says, Judge, I'm not going to talk about my strategy in front of the opposing counsel. You know, so it becomes very sticky in that situation. And there have been times where a case went down, a guilty verdict came in, and I turned and tell my clerk at the end of the day, this one's coming back. It's not going to withstand judicial scrutiny. The appellate court's going to throw this case out because the attorney didn't do their job. And sure enough, that's happened. So unfortunately for me, I wasted the time of the jury and I wasted the time of the victim. Now we got to do it all over again. But it's a problem. Part of the problem is you got to understand, I can't think to myself, that's not the way I would handle this case. That's not the strategy I would use. A judge can't second guess what the lawyer's doing. I'm the umpire at second base. I can call safe or out. That's it. I'm not supposed to tell him whether he should try to steal or not.
Thank you. Wayne?
Okay, Judge, have you ever been given a wrong verdict before?
A verdict that surprised me that the jury got it wrong?
Just they handed you the wrong verdict. The clerk.
No, never got a wrong verdict. No. There have been times. One of the reasons why the judge reads it before it's announced is to make sure it makes sense.
Okay.
There are crimes, for instance, where count 1 is robbery, count 2 is felony murder, saying during the course of that robbery somebody died. If they say not guilty on the robbery, they can't say guilty on the murder. Mm-hmm. But those are inconsistent verdicts. So the judge looks at it. If they're consistent, we'll publish it. If they're inconsistent, hold on. You got to send the jury back in the jury room. And then I tell the attorneys we have inconsistent verdicts. We've got to talk about how we're going to straighten this out. But if I ever gotten a wrong verdict, no. We're a jury society. That's not what we said. No.
Right.
No.
Right.
This is where a juror came back later and said, I want to change my mind a day later. I said, too late.
Yeah. Also, has it ever been a case you were involved with as a judge that you lost sleep over deciding on the verdict?
No, I don't lose sleep on the jury deciding the verdict. Now I'm in family court. Will I decide the verdict? Yeah, I lose sleep on that. I've lost sleep on what is the proper sentence. And the younger the defendant, the harder that decision is. Right. A wise judge told me once that you're going to find there's 3 kinds of defendants who come in front of you. One is a good person who just made a bad decision one day. And the easiest example of that is drunk driving. And we've had priests charged with DUI manslaughter. We've had a twin prosecuted for DUI manslaughter for killing her twin sister. Some of these DUI manslaughter cases are real tragedies. It's a lose-lose situation across the board. The defendant is not a bad person. They just made a bad mistake. On the other side, you've got people that they wake up in the morning deciding, I'm going to rob somebody today. I'm going to commit a crime today. They are out to do bad things today. I got no problem sentencing that. It's the ones in the middle. And this judge told me that you're going to find younger people on this bridge between good and bad. And your job as a judge is trying to figure out how can I get them off the bridge on the right side? If I'm too lenient, do I give the message to him that don't worry about it, it's not serious? If I'm too harsh, do I give him the message that you're out of the game now, you no longer care, you're a convicted felon, so your life is over with, and he goes to jail learning how to be a better criminal. So that you try to get them off the bridge on the right side. That'll cause you to lose sleep.
And when you have defendants appear before you, like a lot of times I see this as a problem too. I know I have some friends that gotten in trouble before, and when they went to court, sometimes they might have had private attorneys and sometimes they might have had public defenders, but, and I don't know if it's a big problem, just asking you, where they were, the attorney did not put in the paperwork for them to be adjudicated after their sentence was, fulfilled. Do you see that a lot in court? Like a lot of defendants not the attorney not asking for adjudication in a small crime. I'm not talking about murder or something. I'm talking about
you're talking about a withhold adjudication.
Withhold adjudication. Yes, that's
right.
what I mean.
Yeah, there have been times I've asked, what's going on here? Why are we seeking adjudication? It's our first offense. Why are we looking for jail time? This is a non-violent crime. The guy's got looked at his past. He's got no violence. He's a petty theft. Now he's got enough petty thefts, so now it counts as a grand theft. Why are we putting him in jail? Yeah, they've done that. I've rejected pleas. Because I'll bring the prosecutor up and say, what's going on? Why are we doing this? Well, Judge, we have a problem with the victim's credibility, and we don't think that, we're going to give them a deal on this. If the victim's not credible, then why are we going forward? There have been times when they negotiated a light deal and I've thrown the deal out to throw the case out, case dismissed. And I know the prosecutor doesn't want to refile that case because they saw this is a loser. So they're not going to come after me. They're not going to appeal me. They're not going to move the case. So yeah, that I've seen lawyers negotiate bad deals for their clients. And you try to step in as much as you can without, like I said, substituting your judgment for them. You may not know what they know, and 99% of the times I don't know what the lawyers know. So that there have been times the other way too, where somebody gives a way too lenient a deal. There's a dead body in the case and nobody's going to jail. I'll call the attorneys up and say, what's going on? What am I missing here? What don't I know? And they'll tell me on the record, Judge, here's what's going on, and explain what's happening. But yeah, you try to avoid that. What really hurts is the cases where, for instance, if somebody is under 21, they can get a lighter plea sentence as a youthful offender. If they turn 21, they don't get that deal. And there's no exceptions to the rule. And the client told the lawyer, I want to do the youthful offender deal, and the lawyer didn't file it in time. The guy hit his 21st birthday. It's gone. And I can't I can't turn the calendar back. I can't find extenuating circumstances. The client wanted it. The lawyer should know. I can't do that. There's no exception to the rule. It's gone. And that's just a hard situation at times to see. They're the defendant through no fault of his own, lost a good opportunity.
Okay, and this is my final question, dude. Have you ever had to hold a prosecutor or the other defendant judge in contempt of court?
No.
Okay.
I don't do that.
Okay.
There have been, I think I can count on one hand the number of times I was upset enough to leave the courtroom. I'd rather leave the courtroom and calm down than hold somebody in contempt. To me, if a judge holds somebody in contempt, he's lost control of his courtroom. You can't have your ego in the system. I'm wearing the black robe, so you got to do as I say. That one case where I got reprimanded, I had a weak moment. Didn't handle it the way I should have. And they were right to reprimand. So that, no, you're not perfect. You're not going to be Superman up there. But holding somebody in contempt is a different thing entirely.
Yeah. Okay, that was it for me, Daryl.
Well, my final question is an easy one. Has anyone in your campaign, Judge Baily, posted anything offensive on social media that you know of?
No. In fact, I don't know of anybody posting anything that I don't see in my campaign.
No, it's a question that we ask all of the candidates, and we want to be fair. We ask that same question to all the candidates. Okay.
I have one final question. Sure. I know what it was, Judge. Have you accepted any campaign money from police unions?
I think The short answer is I don't know. I think the what do you call it? Fraternal Order of Police, State Fraternal Order of Police, District 5. They endorsed me, and my understanding is they were going to cut a check for me, but I've not seen it. So I don't want to mislead you and say no, and then tomorrow the check comes in. So my understanding is they were going to cut a check, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. All right. There you have it.
There's another political committee. I've never heard of them before, and they cut a check for me. I don't even know who they are, so I don't know what their agenda is. And that's one of the things I do when I see something like that: find out who they are, what's their agenda, and maybe return the check. Ian Richards ran for judge, and before he decided to run, he cut me a check. And once he ran for judge, I had to return the check to him because they can't accept a check from another candidate for judge. So that it's the candidate's responsibility to police his own accounts and see what's proper and what's not proper.
Okay.
Okay, Judge Baily, this is our closing. We're going to let you close us out here and tell the voters of Broward County why should they re-elect you as judge of the 17th Judicial Court of Broward County.
First of all, gentlemen, I want to thank you for this opportunity. With the coronavirus shutdown, there are no such things as campaign rallies anymore or speaking engagements. So the only chance we get to be heard is through avenues like this, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. The biggest difference between myself and my opponent is experience. I've outlined my experience earlier in this interview, and I think that makes a big difference. The hardest decision a judge has to make are not legal decisions. Anybody with a smartphone can find the right answer to the law, find the statutes, and find the case. The tougher questions for the judge are life questions. We talked about trying to get that young man off the bridge on the right side. What is the proper sentence? What is the proper circumstance? In family court, who should the kids go home with? In civil court, you make decisions where somebody could lose their house or lose their job, or not recover enough money to help them really recover from a terrible accident. So those kind of decisions, the law books aren't going to help you. It's the life decisions. And my life has been very full thanks to the children that I've raised here in Broward County, the work I've done in Broward County. I've also been a teacher in colleges and law school as well as high schools. I teach Sunday school now at my parish, and my students are all teenagers, and that's a challenge and a thrill for me. But it's staying in touch with the community so that you bring that life experience to the courtroom. I think that makes a big difference. You mentioned the Fraternal Order of Police, or I did. The Hispanic Vote endorsed me, Sun Sentinel endorsed me, Broward Teachers Union, AFL-CIO. We've gotten a lot of endorsements from a lot of different groups around Broward. And I think one of the reasons why is that I'm known as a hard-working, efficient judge in the courthouse. And I'm tough but fair, and I'll take that any day of the week. But I appreciate the opportunity, gentlemen.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's Judge Dennis Baily. He is seeking re-election to the 17th Judicial Circuit Court of Broward County, and he is asking for your vote. Good luck to you, sir, and please don't hesitate, while you're a judge, to come back on the Adams Brothers podcast and talk to us. And we'd all be happy to have you back on here, sir.
Thank you. Stay safe and stay healthy.
To you as well. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you.